Dr. James Farmer, who's busy out in Los Angeles fighting the blue-eyed white man. That's who he's fighting. Also, we got a letter in this line from Dr. Ralph Bunch, or rather from his secretary. Dear Malcolm X, in the absence of Mr. Bunch, who was in Europe, I acknowledge the receipt of your letter of August the 1st, inviting him to attend a Muslim rally on Saturday, August the 10th, at 116th Street and Lenox Avenue, New York. Unhappily, Mr. Bunch will not be able to attend the rally, since he is not due back in New York until the end of this month. Your letter will, of course, be placed before him at that time. We're happy to hear from Dr. Bunch's secretary. We're sorry that he's tied up in business abroad while there's so much urgent business here in this country. And we do think that if he can settle differences between the opposing factions in the Middle East and in the Congo, he should be able to mediate down in Mississippi or Alabama or maybe here in New York City between you and some of these northern crackers. We also sent a letter to Whitney M. Young, the Executive Director of the Urban League, who said, Dear Minister Malcolm, I appreciate very much your invitation to speak at your rally on Saturday, August the 10th, as well as the general spirit of your remarks, urging the need for cooperation where possible. I deeply regret that a commitment made several months ago will find me out of the city on that date and therefore unable to participate in the rally. All of them busy. Made me feel like that man Jesus was talking about who set a dinner and invited all the big shots, the lawyers and the doctors and what have you. And they all sent back a message and said, well, the lawyer said he had a client, the doctor had a patient, the real estate man had too much property. They were all too busy to attend that speech. So Jesus said to the man, well, go out in the alley, in the highway and in the byway and get those people. They're not too busy. They don't have any jobs, don't have too much home, and they're not hooked up to the white man. They don't have to ask his permission if he can come. So they always come out. Another letter from James Foreman of SNCC. SNCC is one of the more recently formed civil rights organizations. Dear Malcolm X, thank you for your invitation to attend the rally in New York, August the 10th. Unfortunately, I will be on the West Coast. Couldn't still be in the country and be any farther away than the West Coast. Unfortunately, I will be on the West Coast and will not be able to be present. I would like to have a representative present from SNCC and will forward your invitation to Cortland Cox, a member of our staff who is in New York working on the Washington March. You can expect to hear from him. I share your concern for the possible explosion of the present racial crisis. Thank you for this effort at working toward a constructive handling of the tensions. James Foreman, Executive Secretary of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. This is a very nice letter from him, and I thank him for taking the time to write, and he did, or at least his representative was supposed to be here today. He's not here, he will be here. Also, a telegram, well, I read you this letter first, from our brother, Roy Wilson. He wrote the longest letter, and it's a good letter. Dear Minister, I acknowledge your courteous letter of August the 1st with its kind invitation to me to speak at an outdoor rally on Saturday, August 10th, and to give an analysis of the present race problem and the solutions proposed by my organization. I regret that I will not be able to be present because of a commitment on the West Coast for that weekend. All of us here are so occupied with the campaign for the enactment of civil rights legislation in Congress and with the August 28th march in Washington, D.C., that I find no staff member available to respond to your invitation. It is my feeling that the NAACP analysis of the race problem is very well known, and the solution urged by it is also well known, having been publicized continuously for many, many years. I note and appreciate your assurance that this will be a rally for the statement of views and not one for debating, arguing, criticizing, or condemning, and that you as moderator guarantee order and courtesy for all speakers. I repeat that I appreciate this assurance, and in return I wish to state that I have never been apprehensive about appearing at a meeting sponsored by the Muslims. Now, I think this is good for Roy Wilkins to say this. I repeat, I wish to state that I have never been apprehensive about appearing at a meeting sponsored by the Muslims, for in all my contacts with you and your followers, I have met only courtesy and consideration. This is Roy Wilson. I am afraid I cannot say the same for some outdoor rallies held in New York City and Harlem and elsewhere, in which the Muslims were not the sponsors and not responsible for orders. It happens that my schedule of out-of-town trips is so heavy throughout the year that I have not been able to be present at Muslim-sponsored rallies, but I wish to assure you that my absence is in no sense due to any fear that the host Muslims will be anything except fair and hospitable. Very sincerely yours, Roy Wilson. That's Brother Roy. I think it's nice of him to say that. And when a lot of these white liberals hear that he said it, they're going to get on me. If they are, they're going to start calling him Roy X. Here's the last reply we received from A. Philip Randolph. A wire. Greatly regret that a previous long-standing commitment prevents my participation in your meeting Saturday, August the 10th. A. Philip Randolph. We're very happy to hear from him, too. We know he's busy. He's the one who's supposed to be over this march that the so-called Negroes are supposed to be making on Washington in a couple of weeks. And they're all of the civil rights leaders are very wrapped up in that march, in preparation for that march. And I think that most of the administration and people in Washington are greatly concerned. They would be more concerned if they didn't think they had everything under control. Where's that cartoon? Bring it around here, brother. One of an artist's conceptions of the march. It points out how, when the masses of black people originally stated that they were going to march on Washington, the government was shook up. It was afraid. All of the senators and the congressmen and the president, everybody down there, they said, we don't want all the Negroes coming down here. They'll explode. And they got all the Negro leaders in to try and stop the march. You probably read about it, try and get them to call it off. And the Negro leaders began to tell them, we can't call this thing off. These our people are stirred up. They're about to explode. If you don't let them blow you up, they'll blow us up. Why, some of the preachers were talking about going out to Idlewild Airport and sitting on the runway so the planes couldn't land, and driving out here on the parkway and blocking up the welfare and construction. They were talking way out of their head. And the white man was shook up. And when he found out that he couldn't stop it, he joined it. That's what he always does. When he can't stop you, he joins you. And when he joins you, you're not going to go in the same direction you originally were headed in. So they put out, I think, $800,000 to give these Negroes $800,000. That's a little over, that's more than $500,000 to help finance the march on Washington, and promised them, I think, $700 million more after it was all over. This is not a secret. Everybody's talking about this. This is what they actually did. And then after they felt down there that they had everything under control, the man you see sitting in that chair over there, he said, come on, I think all you Negroes should come. So he figured he had everything under control. And they think right now they got that thing under control. But you can't control any 100,000 black people nowadays. You can't find 100 non-violent black people. And you can't find 100 people who still love the white man. Not anymore. Our people are waking up. There'll be no skullduggery, no flim-flam, no compromise, no sellout, no controlled show, no false show. No, we need either this or that. This or that. If you're wrong, you're wrong, and if you're right, you're right. And if the people down there are right, they don't have anything to worry about. But if they're wrong, they should be worrying. Because God is against ugly. God doesn't like ugly. When you get real ugly, God chastises. And He chastises you in a way that you least expect it. If He doesn't strike you, He'll strike your children. Right. He'll strike at you through the ones you love the most. He'll make your babies be born dead. And it will serve you right. We'd like to lay a little groundwork for our unity rally here today with a few introductory remarks before bringing forth those of our speakers who haven't showed up. America is faced with her greatest crisis since